much of a part in developing my sense of humour as anyone. So although I've tried to make this speech a little bit humorous, please blame Chris if it's not. For those who don't know, and I'm sure most of you do by now, Chris and I went to school together from the age of 11. My memories from him back then were as the slightly gangly kid who did an amazing impression of a horse. I'm sure we might show you later. And ran like the bottom of his legs weren't attached at the knee. But as Chris said on the wedding website, we didn't really become close until we did GCSE art together. We soon discovered we had similar obsessions with music, TV, apathy, sarcasm, and even our artwork started to look the same after a while.
You forgot beer.
Sorry.
I forgot the beer. Oh, it's coming.
During sixth form, we spent pretty much every day together. By the point of choosing which university to go to, I have to admit that a large factor in my choice was Chris. We spent that much time together that if there was one person I figured I could live with for 4 years, it was him. It was also during this time that I became accustomed to Chris's impressive intolerance to alcohol. You could pretty much guarantee that if Chris didn't throw up after a night out, it hadn't been much of a night out. For all those wondering, the first night of the stag do must have been fantastic. He also at this time managed to solve the age-old scientific question that if you eat Illuminous flyers, you produce Illuminous sick. It wasn't until university that he managed to work out what his limit was, usually so that he could wave at it as it passed by. Back in first year at uni, I remember we had a night out. Chris was drunk enough to have completed his regular routine of throwing his keys and shoes across North Street and lying on the cobbles outside. He probably had about 3 pints. I was staying in Chris and Charlie's room that night, and Chris got quite upset. When I asked him what was wrong, he said he was worried he'd never find anyone and that he'd always be alone. I remember him there, looking at him in his faded stripy pants, stuffing his vomit-covered suit into a bin liner at the bottom of his wardrobe, where incidentally it stayed for the rest of the year. And I must admit, today's a bloody miracle. Uni was an amazing experience for both of us, mainly because of the friends we made. Chris, Charlie and I spent all our time together in first year, apart from the odd occasion when we went to lectures. And then we moved into Gatty with Ollie and then James. And I must say that the 5 of us became more like brothers than friends. We did the student lifestyle properly, complete with an impressive number of stolen traffic cones, cake mix fights, beach wrestling. Beach wrestling.
You're right, Rachel. Yeah, just...
Annual flat cleaning. Lots of alcohol and plenty of stories which most of you will have already heard before. And if you haven't, we'll tell you later. Now Pip. Pip is without doubt my favourite of all the many, many girls Chris has been with. I think we all knew Pip was going to look amazing today, and it's great that I get to be one of the first to shower her in public praise for the amazing job that she's done with everything she's done for today, not just herself. The first time I met Pip, I must admit, I don't remember too well. Chris had asked me to meet him in town for a night out. I'd already had a couple that night and was a little bit tipsy. But he seemed more nervous than usual and seemed to need a bit of moral support, so I made sure I went along. I put his nerves down to the fact that he was meeting people he didn't really know. But when I woke up the next day to find Pip and him arm in arm on my sofa, it was pretty obvious there was a bit more to it. A few weeks went by and Chris quickly became Chris and Pip. I was still worried it wouldn't last. No slight on Pip, but Chris learned everything he knows about relationships from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Then something happened that just made it so obvious to everyone who knows Chris that Pip was absolutely meant for him, and that they would clearly be together for the rest of their lives. She invented cake pie. Cake pie. For a guy whose university mealtimes regularly consisted of a heart-pint pot of custard and a Tesco value Swiss roll with ketchup on. This
It's
was,
all we could afford.
this was the culinary equivalent of the first line of every Buffy episode. In every generation there is a chosen one. As has already been mentioned, there are a couple of people missing from today. Thanks to Chris and Barbara for the kind words about Pip's dad, and I'm sure you'll all join me in saying get well soon. The other person missing is Charlie Bonds. I've already mentioned Charlie. He was our best friend at uni, and it was an absolute pleasure to have known him. Uni was an amazing 4 years, and he was a big reason the good parts were so good. When we all found out about his illness, obviously it was a horrendous time, but it made me proud of how amazing my group of friends are, and how close we all still are, even when some of us live so far apart. Wednesday was a very emotional day for all of us. During the day, we learned that whilst he was in hospital, Charlie had been talking to the nurses about the wedding here today, and he was asked about the first time he met Pip. He replied, "I've no idea at what point it happened, because she just fitted in so well, and it's like she's always been there." I couldn't put it any better, so I had to say those words. Pip's been so strong for all of us, both this week and over the last 12 months. She's an amazing person, both inside and out. I've been very nervous today, about today even, hence the fact that the sheets are shaking. But I can't think of a better way to spend a Saturday afternoon than standing up with two of my best friends while they get wed. Just before we went on the stag do, going back to Charlie, he sent me an email. The last line of the email was, "Have a bloody great time." And I think in his honour, we should all make sure we have a bloody great time tonight. On that note, can we all be upstanding, please? The final toast.